We begin with the latest from Libya, the North African country which has been in a political deadlock for 3 years now. Delegations from rival Libyan administrations resumed talks in Morocco with an aim to end the deadlock and prevent the country from sliding back into chaos. During the talks in Bouznika, near the Moroccan capital of Rabat, Morocco's foreign minister has urged both sides to work together and to prepare for credible elections in Libya. Chaos in Libya began after an armed revolt backed by NATO toppled and killed longtime dictator Muammar Gaddafi in 2011, ending his 4-decade rule. The armed rebel groups then held elections for an interim General National Congress, or the GNC, which formed a transitional government. But the true power still rested with the local armed groups. Over the next year, these armed groups forced the Congress to bow to their demands. Members from rebel groups sought to extend the Congress's 18-month term and delay elections. In 2014, the Congress then rejected the results of an election to a new parliament called the House of Representatives. It then set up a government backed by armed groups, and the newly elected parliament, or the House of Representatives, moved from Tripoli to the east. Now, this set up Libya's eastern administration in Benghazi. It is headed by Khalifa Haftar, a former general who united several armed factions as the Libyan National Army. Now, in 2015, the warring parliamentary bodies signed the Libyan Political Agreement and set up a new transition under a government of national accord. Now, according to this agreement, the House of Representatives was confirmed as Libya's parliament, but also gave members of the Congress a new role as an advisory chamber that was called the High State Council. In 2016, as the House of Representatives took office in Tripoli, it rejected the new government, deepening the East-West divide. For the next 2 years, armed groups in the West battled for Tripoli, while also battling Islamist militant groups across the country. In 2019, Haftar relaunched an offensive, having captured Libya's oil crescent region. He drove his LNA through the southern Libya, bringing the remaining oil fields under his control. Today, he controls over 90% of oil fields in Libya. His assault was backed by the UAE, Egypt, and Russia. The Western Libyan armed groups came together to support the Tripoli government with help from Turkey. In 2020, after Turkey openly sent troops to Tripoli, Haftar's offensive collapsed and his forces pulled back to the east. Now, in 2021, both sides accepted a new government of national unity and presidency council that would oversee elections in December. But the elections fell apart last minute as the House of Representatives in the east and the High State Council in the west failed to agree on a new constitution or rules for the vote. Prime Minister Dbeibah, who currently heads the Tripoli-based Western administration, refused to step down after the 2021 elections collapsed. In response, Haftar's Eastern administration appointed a rival prime minister. Repeated efforts to end the impasse and to bring stability back to Libya have failed. Morocco has been backing the Libyan dialogue and says the solution should come from the Libyans themselves. Now, as the fight for power between the two sides unfolded over the years, the people of Libya continue to live in fear amid a rapidly deteriorating situation. From catastrophic floods in some regions last year to dire economic state, will the two warring sides end Libya's state of paralysis for its people? Will Libya be ready for credible elections? And for more on this, we are being joined live by Professor William Gumede, who is the founder of Democracy WF and an international affairs analyst. Thank you for being with us on Firstpost Africa.
Good afternoon, and thank you. I'm very happy to be with you.
Now, Professor, what role does Morocco's historical and political relationship with Libya play in its ability to mediate between the rivaling administrations?
The first one is just, Morocco was very key in negotiating the 2015 deal that's put together, the initial unity government that is now under question. So that's first. Secondly, Morocco also supported, the groups that opposed Muammar Gaddafi, the former leader of Libya. So in that context, last couple of years, Morocco has been, has risen actually as a political player on the continent because its economy has become very stable. The country has become very politically very stable in a region where we've seen a lot of, in North Africa, a lot of government collapse, and the rest of Africa, a lot of government collapse. And maybe the last one would be the collapse of Syria, and which has also changed the ball game, changed the politics of the Middle East and North Africa. And Morocco now appears to be a very, very stable country.
Right, and Professor, what are the key obstacles that are facing Libya in it, preventing it from achieving the credible elections that Morocco is advocating for, and how might these be addressed during the mediation process?
The first thing is, unfortunately, they've been this crisis has been running since 2021, and all of the different interest groups, the situation actually caters for them. So they've all become happy with the situation. They've got benefits in the current instability and chaos. Secondly, there's a lot of outside groups with interests in Libya's crisis. So their interest is to continue the Libyan crisis, to exert their power. And then there is the differences between the groups itself. For example, the Brook government, the House of Representatives, they say they will only support, for example, a unified a government, and then you've got a group under Mohammed Takala, who reject, for example, any election laws that will come from the House of Representatives, and then the two other ones in terms of the one big issue is that the part that the Khalifa Haftar group, and that's the House of Representatives. They only want to be part of any negotiation if it's a collective effort. And I think that is what Morocco now will have to help them navigate, because you must remember that the UN so far has struggled to put a deal together, and the AU has been spectacularly absent, in leading a mediation process.
And Professor, how could Morocco's mediation efforts affect regional stability in North Africa? And what kind of support does it need from the international community to ensure a successful resolution?
The Libyan crisis doesn't only have implications in the region, but it's also internationally. For example, the rise of fundamentalist Islamist groups because of the chaos and lack of security in Libya itself, and the great migrations and the countries surrounding Libya have all been destabilized because Libya has been destabilized. Europe has been destabilized because of the rise of the migrations. And of course, the people of Libya itself, are suffering from hunger, lack of stability, lack of security. So it is absolutely critical stability, not only of the region, but also of the Middle East itself, and also of Europe. And this crisis in Libya actually started in a way to some extent by the West, because Western countries try to force a regime change in Libya, and this has been the result. The chaos that we see now has been a result of that initial attempt, external Western attempt to try to have it, to get about a regime change in Libya. Now the West must come to the party to support stability, but support stability that are organized by locals, supported by African countries and the African Union.
Yeah. Professor, thank you very much for joining us on the show and for your valued insights and analysis on all of the latest coming out of Libya and Morocco.
Thank you.